Good morning, everybody. My name is Steve Philp, and I'm your host for today's Portugal Pathways webinar. And it is my pleasure to guide you through the panel discussion today, which was around Portugal's property market as we go into 2024, after another year of significant demand oversupply, which continues to drive Portugal's thriving real estate market. Before we dive in, let me just really set the scene by sharing with you some of the information on the Portuguese property market that I'm going to be discussing with our expert panel today. Now, this data is based on some data we've got from the Portuguese National Statistics, which revealed an impressive 12.8% increase in the average house price in Portugal so far in 2023, marking the fastest rate of growth since 2010. Both the Algarve and the Lisbon regions have also witnessed significant price growth, with house prices soaring by an impressive 18.3% in 2023. Furthermore, another report from the Property Market Index, an international research platform, showed how Portugal's property market is performing compared with other markets, and we'll be going through some of those slides today. Now, Property Market Index are experts in analysing trends and forecasts within complex international real estate markets. And as some of you may be aware, Portugal's appeal to affluent expats and international investors has been increasing despite recent changes to the visa and tax regimes. And today we'll be discussing with our expert panelists why Portugal is continuing to prove to be such an attractive place to live, as own or invest in properties. Now, joining us on our panel today, we have Anne Brightman. Anne is CEO and founder of the Brightman Group, a boutique real estate agency with offices near Lisbon and the Algarve. Anne brings a wealth of experience in international real estate from the US and best practices to the Portuguese real estate market. Joining Anne is Chris Marsden. Chris, who leads the RTI family office, and he will share his unique perspective on what makes Portugal such an attractive destination for investment, property ownership, and lifestyles for high net worth families. His experience of managing significant wealth for ultra high net worth international families, along with his insight into the real estate portfolio's private equity and wealth management, gives us a real estate investor's perspective on today's panel. Last but no means least, we have Hakan Kodal. Hakan is a seasoned real estate developer with over 3 decades of experience. He brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the panel through his investment funds and Portuguese developments. As chairman of both Optilon Crea and Ando Living, he has spearheaded numerous successful real estate development projects in Portugal and overseas. I just want to say to the panel, a real sort of thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. Just a quick note really for the audience, for everybody watching, today's webinar is being recorded, and both the recording and the link to the Property Market Index report, which you'll see in a minute, will be available after the webinar. And I'd just like to say, please share your thoughts, your comments, questions in the chat. We'll be having a Q&A session towards the end of today's event, and following obviously the panelist discussion around some of the key trends and forecasts as seen in the Portuguese real estate market going into 2024. So I'm now going to start the presentation. I'm just going to load up the slides, so bear with me 2 seconds. Just to reiterate, the Property Market Index is a renowned real estate research company, and they've conducted a report on Portugal's thriving real estate market, and the report is entitled Portugal's Property Hotspot Report 2023 through to 2025. And it's uncovered some interesting and insightful data on this marketplace and where it's going. And we're going to share the highlights and discuss what this means going into 2024. So I'll just bring up the first slide. So obviously there's lots of positive data on here. You've got 12.8% in terms of Portugal seeing growth in the last 12 months. The Algarve is outstripping that with 18%. Obviously these prime locations. Property hotspots are predicted to climb another 8.7% in 2024. But the statistic I want to sort of start with is that statistic in the top right-hand corner, that 10 houses sold for every one built. And that's obviously driving high demand for obviously new developments. So I really just wanted to get Anne initially, just your thoughts on that statistic and how you think it's obviously impacting the market and what you're seeing it from, from your angle. You're on mute, Anne. Just need to come off mute, please. That's it. Yeah, Anne, we can hear you. Oh no, Anne's having some problems, I think, with her audio. Hakan.
No,
Anne's back. Anne is back. Lovely, Anne. I hope you heard the question.
Yes, I did. No, I heard the question. Thank you, Steve, for that introduction and for hosting this website. And to answer that question, I believe that one of the biggest issues with why there are more used properties being sold right now than new construction is because principally rising labor costs, materials, transportation, everything is going up. And developers usually don't respond to the demand for housing for lower income households. And this goes for practically everywhere, the US, Europe, not only Portugal. And with building materials, they've almost doubled in the last 3 years. So developers are now catering to the high net worth market where they can get a decent ROI on their investment. They're in exchange offering a superior, more sustainable construction. They're offering excellent finish outs and lots of amenities that were not previously common in Portugal, like 24-hour concierge service, private gyms, spas, private pools, gourmet kitchens, extensive outdoor living, and things like this. So it's compensating on one side, I believe.
Hakan, and from your sort of with your property developer hat on, what are your thoughts around that particular statistic? I'm sure that you've seen some sort of major impacts on that.
As Anne saying, rightly, the construction costs are, probably last year we have got over 20%, and for the last couple of years, our construction costs have risen by 50%. So it's a lot. The cost of buildings and the permit process is longer, so it makes much difficult to find the right, development projects to build. So that's why, there's a gap between the demand and supply. So, but I believe, there's a more demand for quality property with amenities, especially in prime locations. It becomes very, very difficult. But the good news is that we have a demand coming from an international community, from the US to Hong Kong, from South Africa to UK. So very diversified. And I think there's still room to go as Portugal becomes not just an investment market, but it's, for living, for relocation, for retirement, and we are getting a lot of more and more a new generation, with startups setting up their business. So very diversified demand.
Yeah. So obviously, I think it's the supply and demand in terms of raw materials is affecting the worldwide market. From a Portuguese perspective, I mean, I certainly from what I've seen, there seems to be plenty of plots available for development. Is that what you're seeing, Hakan?
There are plots available, but especially the prices went up. So when you put the acquisition of a land or a building, and then you put the construction cost, the margins is significantly less today. So I think we need to more available assets in the market to be able to do more developments. So we're very active in Lisbon and now in Melides, Levichosa, in Porto, and not yet in Algarve. But when we do count the whole costing of such projects, the margins are really tight. So we have to be a little bit of waiting that the costs stabilizes and hopefully the margins are better.
Yeah. And Anne, I mean, in terms of sort of regeneration, and there are some significant sort of regeneration projects going on, which are having some positive effects. In particular, I think there's one that a new airport is nearing completion in Lisbon. Can you maybe sort of tell us a little bit about how that's having an effect on sort of certain locations when it comes to the development of residential projects?
Well, Steve, the new airport is actually still under debate, but it will most likely be located somewhere on the south side of Lisbon across the river. And there are a lot of new and really innovative developments going up in this area with a focus on quality of life, space, wellness, longevity. Brightman Group is representing a beautiful development in a suburb called Palmela, which is about 20 minutes away from the Lisbon Bridge. And this is sort of a typical project that represents this type of new building. It's built within a nature preserve, and the anchor of the project is a Swiss wellness clinic. It would be wrong, though, to say that this is being directed towards just retirees, because that's not the case at all. It's catering to a sector we didn't see very much of pre-pandemic, which is the multi-generational community where you have parents, grandparents, children all living in the same community with activities for each one. And the pandemic, I think, really influenced global values. And I think we're seeing this reflected in the new development today. There are all sorts of sports activities integrated into these projects like tennis, paddle, golf, yoga, swimming, and even childcare.
Yeah.
So communities are growing in these areas to accommodate wealthy foreigners that are moving in with things like high quality supermarkets, international schools, and a lot of different special services. So it's really helping to rejuvenate the economy in these micro areas.
Yeah. And how have you witnessed similar things in the areas that you're specializing in? Are there those sort of Portuguese regeneration development projects that are sort of going hand in hand with the developments that you're doing to help sort of drive?
Well, those regeneration projects are really, going very slow. As and I mentioned, the airport is still debated, and I think it will probably take minimum 5, maybe 10 years. So the impact will be slow. Our primary goal is there were two alternatives. One was to go to secondary locations, meaning summer homes, more retirement destinations, or being in central locations where there is more demand for especially touristic apartments and also investment products and plus partial living. A lot of people consider Lisbon or near Lisbon living 2 months, 3 months, or 6 months of the year, and then don't know what to do with it. So that's why instead of going into regions where there is a potential development where it may take years, we prefer to go into prime locations. So in central Liberdade or Baixa, or we are looking to Alcântara, Alfama, and then potentially we are looking to Cascais and Estoril, or Melides. Even it's 1.5 hours from Comporta and Melides, 1.5 hours maximum from Lisbon. We're trying to be in the vicinity of the international community looking for being, in downtown very fast or being part of the local life. So in that respect, there are a couple of other regeneration projects, but more in a smaller scale, like Beato, for example, where there's a new development supported by the government, and also there are a lot of tech companies moving in. And then a Marina project in Alcantara, where it will change, let's say, completely the neighborhood into a more waterfront development. So that kind of projects we are looking for more in the central locations, closer, or in Porto, for example. There are a couple of other projects of regeneration. For sure, it will have an impact, but we are on the more central location. We prefer to be able to attract, short-term stay guests, while also offering living alternatives.
Yeah, that's great, Hakan. I'm just trying to get Chris back on as well. I think he's just unfortunately we've lost him for a minute. So Hakan, sort of with your sort of international real estate investor hat on, as it were, aside from sort of regeneration, what are the sort of habits the international property buyers are sort of deploying at the moment, and maybe how have those sort of habits changed in recent times?
Well, it's especially for the last 5 years, we see a significant change in the demand in terms of consumer habits. One is people before were looking for apartments, simple to occupy and to live, or to rent for long term. This is changing. People are looking for partial living, and for the rest of the time have the possibility of generating revenue for their property, someone to taking care of the management, because it's very difficult for someone who is not from the country to take care of the apartment, the house, whatever, and as long as you don't move 100% for relocation entirely. So for a partial living, I think we see more and more serviced apartments concept. It's not just for Portugal, by the way. It's we are developing now hopefully in Madrid. We're entering London and Paris markets. There's a big product demand for these people who wants to live 2 months in their apartments, or 1 month, or 3 months, or 5 months, and then they can get on the rental pool their apartment, and then of course to have some facilities attached with, which means clubhouses with restaurant, bar, gym, pool, so that whenever they go, they can find the same system, and they can move between one place to another, being in the same community. So that's why we are now trying to develop not just a local product, but international product called Ando Living, which has now multiple locations in Portugal, and hopefully soon in other European cities, so that people may move from one place to another. So that is a nomadic life, which is pushed by mainly remote working. Of course, online distribution of food or materials makes life much more easier. But at the end, it's a more partial living than spending all your life in one place.
Brilliant, thanks. Well, I think Chris, are you back with us? I don't know if you can hear us, Chris. I think Chris might still be having.
I can hear you. Hope everything's good.
Yeah, hi, Chris. Chris, I was going to bring you in to this as well. Obviously, with your family hat on. What are the typical things that international buyers and families want when considering when they settle in Portugal? Obviously, we've been talking about sort of development, the issues with obviously development at the moment, but also how regeneration is a big driver. But what are your families considering?
Thanks, Stephen. Good morning, everyone. I think from our point of view, what we see with wealthy families is they have a multi-jurisdictional lifestyle. So Portugal probably won't be their only base. It will be a base. And what they do is they tend to be looking for safety, security, sunshine. As Hakan was saying, restaurants, good places to go. Confidentiality and security is really important to them. And Portugal's a great, safe place to be. I think from a point of view of how do they make their choices? They probably spread their bets. So they will be in the south of France. They'll be in Portugal. They may even be in Spain. So from a point of view of what they're looking for, it's much more than property growth and property investment. But clearly, part of our remit as a family office is to ensure that they're buying in the areas that are, I guess you would call them secure, safe, and have a strong potential, not for growth, but certainly not to lose money. And I hope that makes sense to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously we mustn't forget the fact that obviously the visas, the D7 and the Golden Visa, will obviously give you access to the rest of the European Union from an investment perspective, as well as a freedom of movement, as well obviously as the tax benefits that come with the NHR and the soon to be announced ITS. We're going to move on to the next slide now, and we're going to look at some of the sort of property hotspots in Portugal, some of the specific areas which obviously are showing sort of significant growth. We're seeing lots of patterns. We're seeing patterns around, for example, Lisbon for tech and science-related professionals settling in those areas. And then we've obviously got the Algarve, which we saw from the last slide, is showing real growth. But that continues to attract many wealthy families and retirees. Obviously, it's got a wonderful climate, 300 plus days of sunshine, which I'd love here in the UK, by the way, but we don't get that at all. They got fantastic local produce and easy access, obviously, to transport hubs, and not only in Portugal, but as I said before, to the rest of Europe and beyond. And I'll come. Oh, Anne's back. I was going to go to Anne first. I'm a slides guide as well. I think we're having a few sort of technical difficulties here, guys. So I do apologise. Let me just see if I can get my slides back up. Oh, I think Anne is sharing. Anne, you're sharing your screen, which is not my slide out. If you could maybe...
How did I end up sharing your screen?
I think you came in and shared the screen. I do apologise, everyone, but if you could.
I don't know how that happened. I thought.
Here we go. Right, I'm back. I'm back in control. Sorry, I do apologise, everybody. So yeah, we're going to look at some of the property hotspots now. And Anne, I was going to come to you first, really. I was just really going to get your opinion on why the likes of Caxias and Lisbon and Quinta do Lago and Valdelobo are commanding such high premium for properties. And where do you sort of see that going in 2024?
Well, that's a good question. The Algarve is booming right now, but traditionally, it was a place where Brits were settling or vacationing. Now we are seeing a infiltration of global citizens coming in and settling in. That's kind of changing the dynamics of the Algarve. And they're going to Quinta do Lago, they're going to Vale dos Lobos, they're going to Capoeira. And that's kind of changing the feeling of the Algarve. It is an interesting migration also to the north, to Porto, and I think Hakan can also speak on this because he has developments in that area. But places like Braga and Porto in the north are really looking at driving investments to develop and grow in that area.
Yeah, Hakan, I mean, do you want to talk about that, or to those sort of urban areas? Do you want
to? For sure, we are very active in all the regions except Algarve. It's not a choice. It's finding the right projects we put in Algarve. But yes, for sure, Estoril, Comporta, Lisbon. So 5, 6, 7, 8 and then Porto 11 and 10 are the regions where we are looking actively to develop. We have 6-7 projects under marketing actually. Some of them with facilities, some of them without. But yeah, we are looking to Algarve. The only issue we have is the secondary market competition, which means that when the price goes down, it goes down because there's a lot of product also at the supply. So, but demand is so strong for now, but still, looking to develop.
And Chris, I mean, with regards to your insight into Portugal and obviously working with many a family out there, how are you seeing some of the more emerging areas, such as sort of like Portugal's Silver Coast, for example? And I know that obviously that Faro, with its proximity to the Golden Triangle, is starting to become even more en vogue. Is that something you're seeing as well, and more families sort of looking for those sort of areas?
I think it's fair to say that most families are expanding where they look in Portugal. From my experience and with the family that we work with, the premium spots were Quinta do Lago, Valdelobo. I think now they are looking for probably a more, how would I say, diverse area, because I think, as Anne says, those kind of areas are very much UK Irish expat, whereas I think some of the northern places that you mentioned are a bit more local, and I think also there's more opportunity up there. I think some of the developments that are being put together in those areas are slightly different, and as my panelists have said, there's different kind of areas that they look for. I think the other part of it, and there's definitely we've seen this, is the visa situations are driving people, and you can see questions in the chat about NHR. You can see questions in the chat about 7 visas, but I do think when you're looking at property in Portugal, really move. If you're moving to Portugal, move because of the lifestyle and the actual benefits that you get from being in Portugal. The tax and the visa benefits will come. I think that's the thing that we're definitely seeing with wealthy families, is they like Portugal as a destination, not necessarily just for its tax and visa options.
Absolutely. You mentioned the chat, and we're getting lots of questions in the chat, and I was really just going to bring one of those questions straight into this, which was rather apt. This was from Taylor, and he's asking of the recent golden visa.
Did that come through clear, guys?
Yes, we heard that, Chris. Yeah. So there was a question from Taylor in the chat around that exact point, Chris. And he was asking, have the recent golden visa changes affected the demand for new versus existing properties? And do international buyers now favour newer properties in less restricted regions? Chris, as you sort of brought that into your answer just now, do you want to take that one?
I think the answer to that is a difficult one. I think everywhere people, because there's not such an amount of building as we've seen. People would like new build, but sometimes what they tend to be doing is actually buying old properties, knocking them down and building them back themselves. So you would buy a location and then you might flatten it and produce, bring out, put a nice architecturally designed villa on it. I think from a point of view of whether the golden visa has stopped anything, the fact that the investments into real estate hasn't happened. If you're moving to Portugal and you're moving for the lifestyle, then I think the property element, you'll be buying property anyway. And if you're wealthy enough, you will, for the golden visa, you will invest into the funds that allow you the golden visa, or you'll set up a company, or you'll employ the people. I don't think it's probably had the effect that the Portuguese government desired. That would be my view.
Yeah. So in terms of you mentioned investment funds, there are a number of regulated investment funds in Portugal, which people can invest in, obviously via the Golden Visa scheme. Obviously, you've got quite a lot of experience. What sort of tips would you give the audience when they're thinking about moving to Portugal and where to invest and be part of the EU? Obviously, it's opening up for international investors. And also just on that, how to sort of structure their income, tax and assets. I don't know if we lost Chris again. I don't know if you heard that, Chris.
No, I'm lost.
Okay.
What I'd say is research is the key. Work with quality individuals that live in Portugal, understand the Portuguese market, and have worked with Portuguese clients for some significant time. I would also go with owner-managed business owners. I think if you're if people are working for themselves, that very much gives them the incentive to look after their clients in a better way. When you're talking about how to structure it, that's very much a personal thing, but there are some fantastic tax structures in Portugal whereby you can take advantage of the tax advantageous elements around it. And you need experts in financial planning. So work with serious financial planning experts, work with serious real estate experts, work with serious accountants and serious lawyers, because it's like everything, it looks easy, but the devil is in the detail, and you need people to hold your hand, take you through the process, and explain to you at every point what to expect. And I think that from our point of view, working with wealthy families, it's as important to know what areas are good for schools, what areas are good for international schools, local schools, what kind of education do you want for your children, what kind of access do you want to amenities and facilities. But I think from a point of view, the one piece of advice I would say is work with people that know what they're doing, and that comes down to research. And I think from working with our advisors and the people that we've worked with, you learn very quickly those that know what they're doing and those that pretend that they know what they're doing.
Yeah, like you said, it's research and surrounding yourselves with people with experience as well. I think that is vastly important. And just to let our audience know that Joe, who's operating the controls behind the screens, he'll be sharing the bios of all our panelists today. And obviously, you can contact those guys through Portugal Pathways. Within their bios, there is also those contact details as well. Now I'm going to go on to the next slide. We're going to change tack slightly. There's been a lot of news about what's been going on with the Portuguese government in relation to the Golden Visa, proposed changes to the NHR tax regime, which tomorrow sees the Parliament in Portugal make the final decisions for the budget before we look to the elections in March next year. How do the panel see all of this playing out? And if you had a crystal ball, do you think the government will realise how important inward investment is to the economy in Portugal and therefore the property market? Again, I'll bring you all in on this. Well, I'll start with Chris, and I'll go to Hakan and Anne. But what are your feelings on that, Chris?
Well, I think the Portuguese property market is going to be a tough one to call. I think the fact that markets work on supply and demand, and there isn't enough supply and there's a huge demand. So I think the property market in Portugal should be very strong. But how long's a piece of string? What will it do? I wouldn't say, but on your question of, what's going to happen in the budget, and if I had a crystal ball, I think the Portuguese government will work out that scrapping the NHR options with only a matter of weeks before the end of the year was not a good idea. I think their immigration systems have been overwhelmed with applications. So I think there will be an extension, as they've been talking about.
Yeah.
We could even possibly see the fact that it's because a new government is coming in, or could come in. I think we could even see it scrapped altogether. But if you say we have looking into my crystal ball, we are still looking at Portugal as an area for our wealthy families to look at purchasing property, both for investment and to live.
Yeah.
Does that cover what you are?
That's great. That's great. So I'm going to ask Hakan and Anne to get their crystal balls out and give a little bit of insight. Hakan, your crystal ball is there.
Yes. We had this crystal ball 5 years ago when the golden visa was purely related to real estate. We said the funds should be the next route. I have an article from 2019. Today we have 4 funds. We managed 200 million euro from 600 investors. And then my second crystal ball was last year. I said, the golden visa will be over, but the impact of golden visa will be very limited, saying that in any case, it will only impact the golden visa products, because there are some products in the market purely structured for golden visa in certain low density areas, certain renovation projects. So I don't think that the golden visa impact will have an impact on the general market, and I think I'm right, and Chris and Anne will confirm that. The next prediction was related to the future of not just real estate, but how Portugal economy will develop in the next couple of years. I think Portugal benefited a lot from NHR and golden visa, but we came to a certain stage where the number of foreigners living in Portugal is 8%, but I think it's very close to 20% in Lisbon. So Lisbon is becoming an international destination. There are a lot of people relocating. I mean, we have 100 investors from US only, and most of them are now reconsidering to move or to have a pied-à-terre. So we have more and more international demand, diversified, not just for some like tax or golden visa incentives. Of course, this will continue. I believe it's still needed, especially the tax side support will be reconsidered. I totally agree with Chris, but our demand for the last 3 projects is purely lifestyle buyers who wants to have a pied-à-terre, Americans, Brazilians, UK. So, and plus people who are moving here to do their business. There was Web Summit a couple of weeks ago. We have got, close to 100,000 people participating, a lot of international community coming in, a lot of young people. So I believe, I'm not afraid of the future of the Portugal and Portugal real estate.
Thank you, Hakan. Anne, I mean, you've been in the market for a while now. You probably had many crystal balls, and some of them have been come to fruition. What are your thoughts?
Overall, I agree with Hakan, and I do not have a crystal ball, and I don't think I'm going to venture to say what's going to happen. I think I'll just wait till tomorrow to answer that question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what we're all waiting for, aren't we? We know that we want the Portuguese government, to give some clarity and certainty to both investors and buyers, obviously to keep the market itself stable. I mean, for us, for Portugal Pathways, this has been a real hot topic in our inboxes for the last 6 weeks. And based on the Wealthy Expat report on Portugal, the property market index analysis, as well as sort of many economic panelists, they believe that the government has to create a level playing field for Portugal's population. But it also needs to balance that as property markets and entrepreneurs, as well as investors and talent wanting to come to Portugal, all have a significant effect on the country's ongoing GDP. and income tax, as well as obviously the added value tax. So it's going to be an interesting next few months, and we'll wait and see, obviously, what the political powers do. Big day tomorrow. I think a lot of people have got a lot of opinions, and there's a lot of crystal balls out there that are being rubbed, and we shall see who has the correct one tomorrow. Well, we're getting lots and lots of questions in the chat, and we'll come to those very shortly. I'm just going to turn my presentation off because I've got a few questions that the audience submitted when they actually registered. And I'm going to ask those first before getting to the questions, obviously, that we've got in the chat. So we've got around about sort of 25 minutes left. So if you've got any questions, guys, in the audience, and you want to push them in, or anything direct for any of our panelists, please obviously push those into the chat. If we don't get round to answering all of your questions, which by the look at it, we probably won't in the next sort of 20-25 minutes, we will take those questions outside of the webinar, and we will answer them, and those will be available, the questions and the answers, on our website in the next sort of 24-48 hours. So we've got a question here from Robert, and I'm going to put this one to Hakan. He asks, what are the key factors international buyers should consider when purchasing real estate in Portugal? We've had a few of those in, Hakan.
Yeah, well, there are two types of investors. One is for investment, and the other one for living. I mean, living is very personal. Depends on what you are looking for. But for sure, you have to be looking in quality assets and also a lot of quality counterparts for the living side. I know in Algarve or in secondary destinations. Some properties where you have to deal with simple things, but it takes so much time to get services, and the bureaucracy or the services may take time. So you have to be patient. On the investment and partial living side, I think you have to have one of the first thing is the liquidity of your investment. I think is the key driver. When you buy, it's great, but when you want to exit, at what price you can exit? What are the competition? So the benchmarking, the research is very much important. And then who is behind that? Who delivers certain guarantees for management? There are certain projects where you can get a fixed yield plus you can partially live. We have 4 or 5, but when you look for an investment, you have to be careful in what price you acquire and what is the exit value, upside potential. So it's really good to have a research and reliable partners for sure.
Thank you, and we'll stay with you, Hakan, as well, because one thing's come here, I think, which is sort of directed for you. And this one is from Roderick Martins, and he said he's heard a lot about the rise in popularity regarding mixed-use developments, and he's saying it really interests him as someone who likes to travel. But he's asking, how does it work from an investment perspective, and are there any rules specifically regarding occupancy for the property owner?
Well, I can give few examples from our projects, but it's not just for living. It's at the same time we're building clubhouses in prime neighborhoods and up and coming districts, so that people not just buy a square meter or apartment to live, but they may enjoy the facilities of the clubhouse with gym and pool and cool working space, but at the same time there's a restaurant, bar, and other facilities so that they can mix up with the local community. So I think that's a bit the mixed use. It's not just buying a single apartment, but it's buying a community together with choosing the right neighborhood. It's really, especially when you are not living 100% of your time in Lisbon, it's good to have a basis, at least to solve some of your problems. And the rest of the time you can get, rental income on your property. So it's really a mixed use between living and investment. and especially enjoying and having cool working or other working between business and leisure moving every day. So it's a bit of the future of our life.
And following on from that, we've got a question in from Peter, and I'm going to ask this one to Anne to start with, but please, Chris and Hakan, come in on this one. So he's asking, how do the panel see cost of living benefits also have an impact on US citizens? The cost of living is off the scale there compared to when he looked at Portugal. And he's also saying that obviously Portugal is much safer and friendlier, and he has lots of friends that are coming. So again, what are some of the benefits from a cost of living perspective, Anne?
The cost of living in Portugal, I would say statistically, is around 30% less than if you compare Lisbon to large cities within the US. I can give a good personal example for healthcare, because in the US, I personally paid about $1,300 a month for myself and my son for a health care policy that did not cover your choice of doctor, emergency care, for a better service here in Portugal that covers your choice of doctors, your choice of hospitals. The same policy or better that also covers medication is around 130 euros a month. Healthcare is a good example. We have clients coming over for that specific reason, because healthcare has become unaffordable in the US. Condominium fees, gated community fees are skyrocketing in the US. And here, I think, even for new development, if you pay over 200 euros a month with amenity services in the development, that's a lot. I'm trying to give practical examples. The average cost of a meal for two at a nice restaurant in Portugal is around 50 to 80 euros at a good restaurant. So yeah, it's much more affordable, much more accessible. Of course, that has to do with wages. Wages are overall lower in Portugal, but I think the influx of the foreign community is also helping to increase wages and earnings.
Yeah, we've just did a bit of research on that ourselves, and we've a new article on the Portugal Pathways website all around the cost of living. So I'm going to ask Joe if he can quickly put that link in the chat, just to sort of take that theme on a little bit. And another one from a US couple here, and they are looking to retire in the autumn of 2024 and relocate to Portugal. And they're asking, in terms of sort of regions, what regions do you think are best suited for retirees? Are there any sort of senior projects or developments in the making from a community point of view? And I'll ask Hakan this as well, because I know that he's got a...
That's a good question, but I think it's a very personal decision that really depends on the lifestyle that person is seeking. If you are interested in living in communities that are especially focused on senior living, there are a lot of terrific projects that are going up, mainly in the Algarve region and in the greater Lisbon areas. And if you or a family member are looking at these options, I know from personal experience that quality price ratio is excellent in these senior living facilities compared to the US. And we're also, as I mentioned earlier, seeing an increase in the multi-generational properties as well, with some really fantastic projects like the one I was talking about in Palmela, that are close to urban areas, but they're surrounded by nature.
Yes, that sounds great. Hakan, have you got anything that you could add to that from Serge for that question?
Well, senior housing is as Anne said, it's a very specific, and I think there are some golf communities. If you are interested, playing golf, it's a totally different than just being in a closer. If you prefer to be an urban living, so you have to make a decision. I think Lisbon greater area and Algarve, and also Estoril. Also, Comporta Medidas, that zone is probably giving enough alternatives for the ones who wants to move.
I'd also like to comment, we haven't really touched on this, but it's a really hot area right now that we're seeing a lot more interest in, which is the Silver Coast.
Yeah.
That goes north from Lisbon along the coastline for about 75 kilometers, I'd say. And prices are considerably lower compared to places like Cascais or Lisbon or Estoril or Comporta. And we're really seeing modern construction, high quality construction, new build, and towns like Peniche, Ericeira, Nazaré, they have gone from being sleepy villages to really legitimate towns with good dining, good schools, shopping, and lots of foreigners living there and a lot of tourism.
Absolutely. I think obviously, I think there's a number of questions in the chat that have been around the Silver Coast people considering it, and obviously it is a huge up and coming area. I'm fairly conscious of the time for the audience and for our panelists. So what I wanted to do, and first of all, I just want to apologise for everybody that we haven't been able to answer their questions. But as I said, we will take the questions off of the platform and we'll answer them, and we'll push them onto our website, and we'll let you guys know when they're up there as well. But we're nearing the end, as I said, to the webinar. Obviously, I want to thank everybody for their time today, for the panelists and obviously the audience. And to wrap up, I just wanted to ask each of our panelists just to leave the audience themselves with some key takeaways from the discussions that we've had today. So, Chris, I'll start with you. I think Chris is still here. A bit of a delay. Hi, Chris. Have you heard me?
I hope I'm still here.
You are, yes. Chris, your takeaway.
So I think the key takeaways for me. Yep, I've got you. The key takeaway. Yeah, the key takeaway for me is that people need to be working with experienced and I would say reputable people in the real estate market, whether you're buying a home, whether you're buying to invest. And Portugal offers some great opportunities at lots of levels, I have to say. And Hakan and Anne have much more experience than I am in the development and the retailing of properties and that kind of market. But certainly what we see for our wealthy families is that it's important to work with people like these from beginning to end of your process. That's the key takeaway I would take, is that there are lots of areas in Portugal that have the potential to grow, but actually there are lots more areas that are just beautiful, lovely places to live, and there are some fantastic opportunities out there. And I would encourage people to come to the country. It's safe and secure, and wealthy people are enjoying moving here, I would say. And there's lots of opportunities around the types of areas, the senior living, the pied-à-terres, all of those things, I think, have it. The one thing I would say is work with people that you know and you can build a relationship with and can trust.
Absolutely, yeah. Surround yourself with a good team and take advantage of the research that is out there. Hakan, what is your takeaway for the audience today, please?
I share the same opinion with Chris in the sense that you have to find the right people to work with and to partner with for sure. Before coming, we are not a Portuguese developer, so we are an international company, and we looked to Portugal at the beginning for an investment perspective only. We were managing funds, and we were partnering with Merrill Lynch, so our primary focus was investment. And at the beginning, it was very easy because the market was so cheap, and was we bought I don't know how many buildings. Now we have 500 million euro of investments. We manage funds, but nowadays it's much difficult to make good investments. So that's why we diversify ourselves. Instead of just going pure residential, we look to street retail, some other asset classes for investment, or touristic apartments, where you have to be careful again, with alojamento local, which is the license of individual apartments are getting more and more restricted. So we're going into touristic apartments. So really, our focus has changed from classical buying a building, buying a residential anywhere you could make a profit, to be much more focused and look to the details of each property and etc. So I think, talk to people, the right people.
Talk to people, research, talk to people, surround yourself with a good team. I think that's a common theme here. Anne, what's your takeaway from today, please?
I completely agree with Chris and Hakan. It is extremely important that you know who you're dealing with. For example, in the real estate market, agents don't need licensing. So you really need to understand that the person that is helping you in any sector really knows what they're doing and understands about regulations and can not only help but protect their clients. I think something that wasn't mentioned is just the pure quality of life. In spite of rising housing prices, Portugal is still sought after because of quality of life, good cost of living, healthcare options, good climate, and it's also the gateway to Europe. I don't believe that prices are going to continue this astronomical climb that we've been seeing over the past few years. And I think 2024 prices are probably not going down, but they definitely will hold their value. They're not going to go up like what they had been previously.
Absolutely. I think you're hitting the nail on the head there. I think people don't forget, I suppose, but they need to consider, and obviously this is a place that they're going to relocate to, the place that they're going to live. And you mentioned cost of living, you mentioned the climate, you mentioned safety. I think Portugal is 7th now on the world sort of safety and security index. The culture, the heritage, the cuisine, and don't forget the people, the locals, really friendly, and again regularly feature as the friendliest people on the globe. I mean, you mentioned the gateway, the gateway from an investment perspective, but also from an open border perspective as well. We could go on. I want to sort of thank everybody again for your time today. As I said, a watch back recording of the webinar will be available to everybody, along with a copy of the Property Hotspot report. We'll get that out in the next sort of 48 hours. I said, in the meantime, if you'd like to reach out to us with any sort of simple questions, or simply want to contact us, talk to us about, obviously, how we can obviously assist you, please visit our website, which is www.portugalpathways.io. I just want to share our next webinar. We have a webinar in January. Let's share that on screen for you. That's entitled Managing Your Income, Wealth and Investments in Portugal. That webinar will take place on the 16th of January 2024 at 4 p.m. Lisbon, London time. Again, there is a registration button just popped up on the screen, so that is there now for you to register. And again, just to stay update, please check out our website at www.portugalpathways.io. Just a final thank you to the audience for attending, for your engagement, for your questions. As I said, we will get back to you and to the panelists for their time and insight and knowledge. And all it leaves me to say is enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you very much. Thank you.